What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is a very different approach to how I normally film videos to talk about weight loss stuff and surgery. I was trying all morning to film this video about the VSG to MGB revision surgery, and I just wasn't having it, but I've been sitting for a while contemplating everything, and now I'm ready to just kind of spill my brains about it. Spill my guts, spill my brains, whatever. But so what is MGB revision surgery? So VSG, as you may already know, is the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. It's where 3/4 of your stomach is cut off and it's made to be really tiny, so you're only able to eat about 4 ounces or less after surgery. Over time that does stretch out. It's natural. Whether you were good or bad depends on bad, you know. I say that in relative terms, but yeah, I mean, I'm a year and a month out at this point, and I can eat maybe 8 ounces. And I've just been struggling. I've been having a really fucking hard time, especially because it's quarantine right now in the midst of the pandemic. Me and my boyfriend have been, stuck at home for the last 3 months. I've been working from home for the last 3 months. So it's a struggle, struggling with boredom and purpose has always been a big problem for me, but now especially more so because I can't go shopping, retail therapy, can't go out to eat for fun, can't visit friends. Of course, most of those really restricted bans are lifted, and you're able to go to the stores now and you're able to see friends, but life's not completely back to normal, especially because I'm still working from home and for the foreseeable future, and I'm fine with that because I honestly really like it. But I just find that working from home, it's okay, once it's time to shut down, I just turn my computer off and I'm still sitting my ass on the same couch, you know what I mean? So it's what do I do now? And I moved since last year, and my old apartment was in a really nice neighborhood, but it was a really shitty apartment. But I lived by this track park, and when I wanted to go on walks and stuff, I would just it was beautiful, it was super nice. But now we moved to the west side, and I live in Chicago, so me and my boyfriend moved to the west side, and it's kind of shitty over here. It's a little dangerous crime-wise, but it's not terrible, but since the gyms are closed and so is my personal trainer, etc., the only exercise I can have is if I go on walks or if I do home workouts and stuff. And when I prefer cardio, especially for I know strength training's better. I just prefer going on a walk or a jog or whatever. But being in this neighborhood, there's always people on their porches, and there's a lot of dudes catcalling and ogling and shit. So going on a walk or a jog, especially with it being really hot out and you dress more skimpy just because it's too hot, I don't know, it's just I'm not saying I don't do it, and I'm not saying I shouldn't, don't make excuses, but I'm just saying it's a mental mindfuck type of thing. So I don't like doing it. I do it, especially on my lunch break, and I take my dog on walks. There he is right there, Mr. Poops. That's my dog. His name's Alfie. But so, yeah, I hate it. So, and even if the gym does reopen, I feel I'm not going to be going anytime soon, because even before Corona, I feel I would get sick all the time when I would go to the gym all the time. And as a result, I really increased my sanitization efforts. I would wipe down the machine before I used it as well as after. So there's that, but I digress. But that's kind of the backstory of why the quarantine's really gotten to me. I've been eating and drinking my boredom, and just stress and depression, and quarantine's got you thinking about a lot of scary stuff, and the virus is scary. So it's just what I'm saying is I feel I reached rock bottom during this time, and it wasn't the beginning of my thoughts about doing the revision, because I've been thinking about it for months and months. And what I mean by that is literally pretty much since I started fucking up on my journey, I would say I realized how bad I messed up probably in I feel only recently did I really realize how bad I messed up, because it was like while I was in the throes of it last year, I still felt like I had a chance and blah blah blah, but like, and by a chance I mean at like losing substantial weight. But it wasn't until the last like 3 to 5 months that I was kind of just like, girl, you really fucked this up, like you shit the bed. Like, I lost about 70 to 80 pounds. Well, I technically lost 80, but I gained back 10. So I'm sitting here saying I lost 70 pounds basically since my surgery. I've lost 100 since my highest weight of 325, like I've mentioned, but since surgery in June of last year, I've only lost 80 and then I gained 10. So, like I was saying, I just been thinking about it for months, like literally almost every single night when I'm laying in bed, I sit there and think, like, just how upset I am at myself, and like how could I let this happen, and like I wasted such an amazing opportunity, and like and I would Google re-sleeving all the time, and it was like, I guess re-sleeves happen, and a re-sleeve would obviously be just getting the surgery again. But I was reading that like it doesn't really happen because of like scar tissue, and like also like I feel like, it's super shameful, like you're getting sleeved again because you like were like, what's it called, non-compliant is like the professional term from like a weight loss surgeon standpoint, because I ate bad and like I didn't follow plans and like I didn't work out enough and stuff. But I did work out a lot. I'm gonna give that to myself, but it was because my eating and drinking was so bad that the amount of working out I did didn't make up for it. And like they say in the fitness and health community that like abs are made in the kitchen, so like that means your weight loss and your transformation is more reliant on what you eat and not how much you work out. It's kind of like an 80-20 thing, 80%, 20% of effort. But so I was just thinking about it all the time. And then I saw that, re-sleeving's not really a thing, but the revision to mini gastric bypass is. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, what is that? Oh, and I got like all obsessed with it, and I was reading about it, and I was thinking that's not something I could do because I technically wasn't qualified to do a regular gastric bypass, even though that's what I wanted to do from the start. But the reasons I wasn't qualified was for a couple reasons. One is because my BMI was so high that a gastric bypass is considered a high-risk surgery. It takes longer, and like there's complications possibly. But also, I take a lot of medications both for MS and bipolar, but so the psych meds, most psych meds are like, well, I'm not going to say most, but a lot of psych meds are extended release, which means like they sit in your belly and like over time they like leak into your system or whatever. So like, if you had gastric bypass, the medications aren't absorbed fully, because that's how gastric bypass works. It's restrictive on your stomach for capacity, but also malabsorption is a reason that aids in weight loss, because whatever you eat is not fully absorbed and it passes through your body, and that's why you lose weight, because you don't have as much calories ingested. But so that's why I couldn't do it. And so I had the sleeve. It went well. My recovery was amazing. The surgery was amazing. But I feel like, the majority of my lack of extreme weight loss that I was hoping for and that a lot of people achieve is because of non-compliance. And like I said, non-compliance pretty much means that you ate poorly, you didn't exercise, blah, blah, blah. So my story for that, though, is what gets me is like, it wasn't until months like 3, 4, and so on that I started kind of creeping back into my old habits. Like, I started eating takeout from restaurants, fast food, and I started drinking again. And I'll get into that later. But so before I get into that, I realized, thinking about it in retrospect, for all of this time I've been, analyzing my past and like thinking about what should I do this? Should I go forward with it? Am I going to make the same mistakes? But that's how I think. I'm like, I'm not going to make the same mistakes. That's the whole point. Like, I'm not going to fuck this up this time. And like, I've done big things in my past that like, I've had to repeat my failures, and like, I had amazing results once I realized what I needed to do. So like, it's terrible, but I know like it's a bad track record or whatever, but like I just know this the second time around, like I'm not gonna make these mistakes, and it's really a trial by error type thing. And so for the first couple months though after surgery, I was doing all the right things. Like I was eating soft foods, pureed foods. I was so diligent about it, and I would even post on my Instagram about it, and I'd get lots of people messaging me for the recipes, and I was having lots of soups and stuff, and but then, like I said, in hindsight, when I realized the missteps I made, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Like I was making all my food at home for the most part. Like I was pureeing stuff, and so the types of things I would make would be like chicken salad, like a normal, like a chicken or tuna salad, you know, or guacamole with canned chicken, or, well, I would make those, but I would like puree them, or I would just eat them as a soft food later when I graduated to soft foods. But then I would also make like cauliflower pizza cups, and like what else was a big thing? I would have like Quest tortilla chips, and I wouldn't really have protein shakes, even though I was supposed to, because I was like, no, I don't want to have any liquids. I want to have this. I would have a lot of like Campbell's chunky soups, or like the Annie's organic like tomato soup with pasta in it and shit like that. And it's like, technically, like a normal person would think like, oh, it's organic, it's healthy, or like, oh, it is healthy or whatever. But it's like, it's not. All that stuff is like high fat, high calorie. It's very processed, even the shit I was making. But at the time I thought it was fine, and like I felt like, oh, I'm just eating this tiny portions, and like, and I was seeing weight loss, so like I thought I was fine. And like I'm saying, in hindsight, it's like, no, like those pizza cups and the guac and chicken and all that kind of stuff, it's like, no, like I needed to be much more plain with it, like very low calorie, pure to the bone, like protein in a vegetable, not all this extra shit, not all this extra dressing and flavor enhancements. It's like, no, fuck the flavor. You're doing this for a reason. It's gonna be a tough year, but you're gonna lose your hella weight, and then you can move on with your life, you know. And I wasn't doing any of that. But fast forward to month 3. I've told this story on my original video about my weight loss journey, but back in the day before I met my boyfriend, I was single for a really long time after like a really, really terrible, like abusive, traumatic relationship, and my dog had died, and like there was lots of like home drama with my family, and like I was just a mess. And so I wanted to like date again or whatever, and it was like terrible timing because, like I said, I had kind of just had my surgery, and I was, not in the right place, and so I'd go on dates all the time with dudes from like online dating and shit. But I wouldn't tell them I had surgery, because you're not gonna tell a stranger that, plus like the judgment and whatever. And also because I'm like a super anxious person, I would like get kind of lit, like, buzzed before I'd even go on the date, just so I could be calm. And then, of course, it's like a date. Usually, this was like pre-quarantine. This was a long time ago at this point. You get drinks and whatever. And like, I don't want to seem weird, and I don't want them to think, oh, like, I'm not normal because I had weight loss surgery. So I would drink, and liquid passes right through you. So as long as I didn't eat, I could drink. And then also going out to eat, that involves eating food that's like high calorie, high sodium, high carbs, high processed, whether it's a nice restaurant or a shitty restaurant like McDonald's, like it's still not the right thing for a bariatric patient who just had surgery. So I was just doing that so much, and then I gave up on the dating, and I was over it. And I went back to being like a hermit, and I would just spend time with my friends. But it was summertime, and I would go to festivals and stuff with my brother's girlfriend, now fiance, and like, same thing. I'm a kind of a really antisocial, anxious person, so to do a lot of social shit, I always want to be like fucked up, like on booze, not drugs or anything, but like booze. And so I would drink all the time, and like, go to street festivals or concerts, music festivals, and like, I always felt like I don't want to be here unless I'm lit, because this is boring, or like, or just like social anxiety, social awkwardness, or whatever. So I would the whole summer I was lit off my ass basically, but at the same time I would be like, oh God, girl, what are you doing? Like, you need to calm down on the drinking because this is really because at that point I noticed the weight loss. I was still losing weight, but not like a shitload like I was right after I had the surgery. So pretty much from, oh yeah, and Game of Thrones had just ended too, and if you know me, like I'm like obsessed with Game of Thrones. Like, I mean, everyone knows that. And I was like, I mean, it sounds lame, but I was literally devastated by how it ended. I've been like obsessed with this show for like 8 years, and then we get that ending, and like my Khaleesi deserved better. And so I was like really sad about it. So like I was just always drinking, always partying, always chilling, and like, ugh. And I think that's the thing too. You have to kind of get, unless you have really good self control, which most, and just my opinion, don't come for me, is if you are very overweight, like I was, and other, like to the point that you have to have surgery, like you don't really have that much self control. So like being in a social setting where it's like either a party or a summer festival where it's a lot of junk food, lots of street food, like you kind of get roped into like eating what everyone else is eating and wanting to fit in and wanting to not get judged. So like instead of eating, and like a lot of like family parties and stuff, I would bring my like bariatric approved food that I made, but I wouldn't eat it because I would feel either peer pressured or just the bad decision to eat what everyone else was eating. And I kept telling myself, it's just a little bit, it's fine. It's just a little bit, it's fine. And meanwhile, too, a lot of my close friends and my brother and my sister, they were, they could see this shit going on the sidelines, and they'd be like, hey, girl, maybe you should cool it, blah, blah, blah. And I knew, like, subconsciously, so I would get really defensive. Like, I would be like, oh, my God, like, shut up, like, I'm fine, blah, 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 But it's like, no, it was true, and I wish I would have listened to them. And all this time, I had a therapist. I have two therapists. I had a food therapist and my normal therapist, and I was still doing all this, like, making all these problems. And I'm just like, I feel like I knew at that point that I was fucking up, and I would tell them about it, but I would kind of lie to like save face because I was ashamed. And so instead of being, it's a therapist, like I just feared judgment so much that I didn't want them to know. And like my food therapist had bariatric surgery herself, so like like I just wasn't being totally transparent and honest with them, and so they couldn't help me if I wasn't being honest. So those were a lot of my issues, and I'm like going through my little list here to make sure I'm kind of covering all my missteps. Oh, and other things that I did that I thought were fine was I lived with my sister back then, and like we would go out to eat a lot, but like to like a casual like a restaurant, not necessarily fast food, but it's still not healthy, like Taco Burrito King or something. And I would get a taco, and I would get it with just like vegetables, no cheese or whatever. So I was like, it's fine. And also I wouldn't eat the whole thing, but it's like, still, girl, you're eating like this greasy meat. I usually get chorizo or something, like on like a tortilla, carbs with like all this grease, like, and with also how often we'd go in general out to eat. I would always try to get the healthiest option, but it's like, okay, that's fine maybe once in a while, but with how often we'd go out to eat, like that shit adds up. So, and I remember with one of my best friends, she, like I said, she'd have like family parties, like house parties, like adult ones, not like raging teenage ravers or anything. But her mom made like mole with like, if you know what mole is, it's like, it's really high calorie, really rich,